Capri's Horn. That's it. That's the build. Thank you everyone for watching. Subscribe, bless your faces, and deuces. No, of course there is more nuance than that. One cannot simply slap the galaxy's most hideous helmet on their face and suddenly be able to get this top tier build for PvP and PvE. Whether you need ad clear on an overwhelming amount of red and yellow health bar enemies, a crowd control to give you and your team time to breathe, flexibility in damage and champion counters, or maybe you just like subclass keywords like Scorch, Suspend, oh so much Suspend, or Volatile, you need something incredibly clever to synergize to make this happen. But sadly, I wasn't lying. Yes, this is what some in the community may call a
nasty
build, but it is limited to this season. So if you haven't touched your Titan in a while, this maybe, just maybe, might be the motivation you need to pick them up, dust them off, and remember the lost art of punching things to solve all of life's problems. You all really liked it when I bribed you with $25 in burrito money to subscribe, so I am bribing you again. Subscribe and you could be like this guy who got food for just clicking a mouse. Winners are announced at the end of the week. Alright, Capri's Horn. I know some of you that the sheer vulgar appearance of this Pinecone Play-Doh combo will deter you from using this build, but may I offer you a persuasive argument that this horrendously ugly exotic with this setup is like having a heavy weapon on a 2-second cooldown. Like, we're both watching the same background footage here, right? The Capri's exotic perk makes your barricade blast out a wall of fire that goes forwards then backwards for big damage. This is fantastic for a general AoE damage tool, as now all three of your abilities are now a threat. And because this threat is happening while you are safely behind cover of that barricade, also a great tool to keep your team alive. But it gets better. Whenever you get any kinds of solar kills, you get a portion of your barricade energy back. My weapon of choice is Banshee's Roll of the Judgment of Kelgaroth that has both Overflow and Incandescent, which, being that we're trying to be a crowd control build, works out perfectly. If you're watching this in the day of publication or shortly thereafter, you can still go grab this thing from the tower. Kills with this solar space stick get energy back on your barricade, and occasionally, especially if you're playing with a group, with the incandescents it can cause a few extra fireworks with ignitions. Having a barricade up frequently is a lifesaver. Get a res, grab a point, file your taxes, all behind the safety of that barricade. Great, but that's really widely missing the point of this exotic. When I said all solar kills give us barricade energy, I meant all. This means that this exotic by itself creates a self-contained loop of fiery ass kicking that scales with the enemy density of your encounter. More enemies means more barricade kills from the firewall on placement, which means more barricades, and so the cycle of violence turns. But as is apparent for the gameplay, we aren't on solar, we are on strand. Strand Titan's starting aspect grants a suspending barricade with the aspect Dregner's Lash. It doesn't take a warlock to understand about what our plan is about to be. Barricades now do both suspend and big solar damage when placing them. It's basically the equivalent of picking up an enemy by their shirt collar and beating the crap out of them, but like with fire. This means that when we do encounter an enemy that is capable of weathering our personal wildfire, such as a yellow health bar enemy, they are still forced to stand still and wait for their turn as they're suspended in air and unable to fight back for about 10 seconds or so. It's also nice because the properties of these two barricade blasts are slightly different. The strand blast seems to be a tad more intelligent, I guess you could say, and will curve towards targets as well as just being a little bit better about going up inclines and such, but I digress. We could have stopped there. Sure, but I saw this build and thought to myself,
not enough property damage.
Quicksilver Storm, an absolutely fantastic exotic, particularly with the catalyst, that no one else is talking about anywhere on YouTube. I am the only one. Subscribe for more original ideas. Quicksilver has good damage at base, rocket tracers for much needed AoE, and even more damage, strand synergy, which we will discuss in a bit, and with the catalyst, it has a high damage grenade that puts the hole in a whole lot of damage. Quickly, for our PvP players, Quicksilver is fantastic feeling exotic. It has incredibly high aim assist, recoil direction handling, reload speed, and range with a maxed out stability stat, which makes for a buttery smooth experience when using this thing. Its grenades aren't too much to write home about for damage, but they do one-shot world objects like barricades and even Well of Radiance, which, while niche, can come in handy. but our main purpose for using this is those free strand tangles we generate on those alternate fire warning shots off of grenade launcher kills. Hopefully you are nervously looking at the artifact mod and knowing exactly where we are going with this. Overload auto rifle, multi-siphon, strand, and solar for cost efficiency, untangular to create suspending blast around our tangles when we shoot them with our Quicksilver, allied unraveling for unraveling rounds after strand weapon multi-kills, threaded blast or even more tangled explosion damage. And lastly, let's do volatile flow for volatile rounds on orb pickups, and medieval champion for being able to cover all 3 champion types from our build. With this artifact mod, our Quicksilver Storm is now an unstoppable demigod of PvE destruction, intent on nothing more than the mass extinction of humanity's enemies. Quicksilver generates its alt-fire grenades and the artifact unraveling debuffs. Those 2 generate tangles, tangles generate suspend, which allows us to cycle back to the top. But you may have noticed an odd man out in our artifact picks. We are running this setup with the always hilarious Crown Splitter. I wish someone would have told me sooner how much fun a big bonk volatile sword really was. There are probably better and safer damage options out there, but I live for chaos and fun, so fight me, Reddit. In order to get an Orb of Light, which gets our volatile flow going, we are using the Reaper mod, which generates orbs of power on kills after using our class ability, and because we are using our class ability a lot, we have a lot of orbs of power. I take advantage of this with my armor mod, starting with the class item itself, where I use the aforementioned Reaper mod, and then distribution, as I think this is one of the few times it's worth slotting, in the outreach mod for our melees that I will explain why later. For boots, I'm using absolution for energy on all abilities after an orb pickup, an orb of restoration for energy on my least used ability on a orb pickup, and a solar holster mod, which hindsight, I probably should have changed this for like a solar surge because of my glaive's overflow perk. I don't really need to reload that much, but you can adjust that as you get to it. My chest piece is a bit flexible, but I use a loosened blade for better glaive and sword guards, a swappable solar reserves mod, and then another swappable mod of charged up. Arms, heavy-handed for reasons, harmonic loader for faster Quicksilver reloads and momentum transfer. Helmet, dynamo for free super energy from the Costco-sized wholesale of barricades we're placing, and a harmonic solar strand mod from the artifact. Alright, still with me. Let's talk subclass. Being that we are already dishing out suspend like the strand version of Oprah, we run the shackle grenades to keep the fun going. The only other aspect we can run is into the fray, which grants us woven mail from destroying tangles and using our super. This also increases our melee regeneration when we have woven mail, which is nice. Our fragments, however, is where I feel the real genius of this build lies. Threat of propagation grants our Quicksilver unraveling rounds on powered melee final kills. This is why we had those melee-centered mods earlier. The fragment means that even when we lose our artifact mod from allied unraveling, we can still make that debuff happen frequently from our 3 melee charges, and the aspect which is recharging our melees passively while we have woven mail. Next is Thread of Continuity for increased debuff durations. In either, you could do the Thread of Mind for more tangles while we have our woven mail, or Thread of Wisdom for even more orbs from killing a suspended target, or Thread of Warding for woven mail on orb pickups, being that we're going to have a lot of them anyway. It's up to personal preference. Our last fragment is where the barricade spamming magic happens. Thread of Mind. Defeating a suspended targets grants class ability energy, and thus we have come full circle. With both the Kepris and our suspending barricades and the Thread of Mind combo generating class ability, we are able to get an unbelievable amount of class ability energy that we can weaponize into an ad clearing orb generating team utility machine that will make the other 2 classes jealous. I cannot recommend this build enough. Titan is my least played class, but holy crap is this build making that claim difficult. Obviously for PvP, this isn't as unbelievably flexible as this previous build was, but getting a kill with the barricade certainly sends a message. Subscribe for burritos, bless your faces, and deuces.